Hello everybody and welcome back to the Strawberry Fields. It was a nice morning in the apartment. The kitchen smelled faintly of toast while the living room echoed with light melodies. Tokie strumming away at the guitar and Kaori practicing her favorite song on the piano, and little Toshiro tapped happily on the tablet. Kaori felt a little sentimental. She grabbed her bag and headed out. It was her last day. The air outside felt different, like it knew something was ending. She arrived on campus with a quiet smile, not quite sure how to feel. The halls felt slower, the buzz of lockers and laughter more familiar. She wandered through, stopping to chat with a few classmates, hugging a few. Of course, she found Wolfgang by the vending machines as usual. They leaned into each other's space, sharing a few private jokes and a gentle teasing flirt. Kaori pretended she didn't notice how flustered Wolfgang got when she nudged him with ink, and he pretended not to care when he followed her down the hallway anyway. It wasn't a big romantic gesture, just soft, comfortable, between two people who liked each other more than they ever really said out loud. By the end of the day, Kaori stepped out of school for the last time, holding a wrinkled paper from her locker and wiping a happy tear off her cheek. She wasn't sure where the next steps would take her, but she was ready, and she couldn't wait to tell Tokie all about it at the library. The sun was dipping low by the time Kaori and Tokie arrived at the library. Their backpacks slung lazily over one shoulder and a faint dread of unfinished assignments hovering just behind them. Inside, the building smelled like old pages and quiet ambition. Kaori snagged a seat by the window and pulled out her notebook with a dramatic sigh, while Tokie wandered in slowly. They didn't talk much, just the occasional groan or triumphant fist pump when they finished a paragraph, but it was a kind of silence that only exists between siblings who don't need to fill it. After a few solid hours and a few shared snacks, they looked at each other and silently agreed, "Homework is done. Brains are fried. It is time to go." And that's where we called it a night. That next morning started with flying shoes, spilled bowls, and Tokie yelling, "Where is her other sock?" She was deep under a laundry pile searching for it. It was her last day of school now, and the chaos matched the energy. Miu tried to hand her a smoothie, Akihito tried to remind her about sunscreen, and baby Toshiro clung to her leg like a koala as she scrambled out the door. Even Emmy barked encouragement as Tokie sprinted past. At school, Tokie was greeted with cheers and high fives from classmates. The hallways buzzed with end-of-the-year energy. Friends snapped photos, music blared faintly from someone's speaker, and glitter ended up in her hair somehow. After the initial rush of celebration, Tokie slipped away into the library, her safe haven. There, in the quiet between bookshelves, she practiced writing her final poem of the school year. Something raw and heartfelt and definitely cheesy. By the end of the day, Tokie leaned back in her chair, staring out the library window as the bell rang one last time. No more early alarms, no more rushed essays, just wide, open days filled with music, stories, and the next chapter of her life. As she stuffed her notebook back into her bag, she smiled. She was ready for it. After school, Tokie headed across the city to visit her big brother Soda. When she knocked on the door of his little apartment, Soda answered with the biggest grin on his face, with Ruben right behind him, cradling a little bundle. "Meet Mitsu," Soda beamed. Tokie's jaw dropped. "A baby?" She squealed instantly, reaching for the tiny girl with reverent hands and a dozen questions spilling from her mouth. Tokie sat on that couch, completely enchanted by Mitsu. "I'm an auntie now," she whispered like it was the most sacred title on earth. Soda and Ruben laughed, watching as Tokie melt into full-on baby mode, making silly faces, inventing little songs, and asking if Mitsu liked her hair. Just as Tokie was heading back home, she decided to declare that she was going to be the coolest aunt ever. But right as she got home, there stood Mitsu Ryo, hands in his pockets, nervously shifting from foot to foot. Tokie blinked surprised but not unhappy. They started talking and laughing. Their conversation was playful and it charged with flirty sparks. until Mitsu suddenly leaned in and stole the quickest little kiss, and then bolted. Tokie stood there stunned, cheeks warming with color. She chuckled to herself, half flattered, half confused. Between old crushes and new surprises, she didn't really know how to feel about, well, everything. And now, well, it's her big birthday. And is she still having the swirl of teenage emotions, or is she struggling with wondering who she'll be as a young adult? But the house was buzzing with excitement from the moment the sun came up. Streamers in pastel pink and soft golds were dripped from wall to wall. The smell of fresh baked cake lingered in the air. Miu ran back and forth between the kitchen and the living room in a frenzy of last-minute prep, while Akihito tried, and failed, to keep the toddler from stealing frosting. Emmy just trotted around proudly in a hat that refused to stay on. It was a full house kind of day, the kind where joy echoed from every room. Kaori and Tokie, matched in chaotic energy but not in outfits, floated through a house in a daze. One moment they were giggling over childhood photos, next they were hugging Soda Too Hard, who had shown up with Ruben and baby Mitsu bundled on his shoulder. Nara and Wolfgang arrived at the same time, which caused a flurry of awkward teen energy to bubble through the air. Minsu was already by the snack table, nervously adjusting his shirt, and Sungki gave Tokie thumbs up from across the room, pretending not to watch her every move. The candles were lit, the lights dimmed, and everyone gathered close. 2 cakes, one for each twin, sat side by side. Tokie's was sleek and modern, Kaori's bursted with color and sparkles. As they blew up their candles in unison, cheers rang out, cameras flashed, and time, just for a moment, stood still. The twins were officially young adults. The Gen 1 era has ended with hugs, chaos, laughter, and a tiny splash of frosting to the face. As the party winded down, the guests danced in socks across the living room floor. Miu watched her daughters with full hearts. From toddler tantrums to high school crushes, the journey has been everything and more. And as Gen 2 waited quietly on the horizon, it was clear. This legacy is a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you on season 2 of the Love Wreck Legacy. Bye!